Well, following ceasefire talks here in Cairo, the Hamas delegation has now departed and have issued a statement reiterating their call for the ceasefire proposal put forward and presented by US President Joe Biden in late May to be upheld. This is a deal which Hamas officials have said they agreed to in early July and have accused Israeli officials of presenting new conditions to try to undermine the progress of ceasefire talks. Now, in its latest statement, Hamas officials have reiterated that they want to see guarantees that there will be a transition to a full and permanent ceasefire. Those guarantees, as far as indications suggest right now, have not been upheld or committed to, rather, by Israeli officials. We've heard from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in the past few weeks saying that while Israel might welcome a temporary pause in fighting, that first phase of the deal, of course, presenting a 6-week pause in fighting, Israel wants to see a continuation of the war in order to eradicate Hamas's military capabilities. This despite the fact that the current US assessment is that Hamas's military capabilities have so far been downgraded. Now, of course, there are also other key sticking points, namely surrounding the longer-term presence of Israeli troops within the Gaza Strip. We know that Israel has presented a revised proposal which would see a reduced number of Israeli troops stationed along the Philadelphia corridor, a buffer zone separating Egypt from southern Gaza. But Hamas has in the past rejected any suggestion of a longer-term presence of Israeli troops in any sort of post-war agreement, and they have reiterated the fact that they want to see a full withdrawal of Israeli forces from the Gaza Strip. Now, of course, these talks have been focused on the so-called bridging proposals put forward by the Biden administration in an attempt to narrow the gaps between Israel and Hamas. And while it appears as though there hasn't been a huge amount of progress in trying to narrow those gaps so far, we know that working level conversations will continue over the coming days between mediators and representatives of both Israel and Hamas to try and hammer out those finer details of the ceasefire agreement. But at this stage, there have been no major breakthroughs, and all eyes will be watching to see whether we see any further negotiation talks being held between Hamas and Israeli delegations. Nada Bashir, CNN in Cairo.